Welcome to Back to the Father, a show about the journey of life focused on our final end, which is God Himself, our loving Father. And now, here's your host, Dave Palmer.
Well, welcome everybody to this week's edition of Back to the Father here on the Guadalupe Radio Network social media sites. I'm so excited to be back. It's been a month since we had our last Back to the Father, and we told you a month ago that we were going to have Share-a-thon, and then a couple of weeks when Sissel and I were both in Medjugorje, and then, then the next week was 4th of July, which was last Friday, and here we are. And interestingly, next Friday we're going to be out again because we've got our big 25th anniversary event. I hope you have your tickets regardless of where you're watching this from. It's going to be quite a celebration. It all kicks off really Friday with kind of an event more with the speakers and the staff and some volunteers. But then the big event's going to be Saturday at the Plano Event Center. And Joe Loney, by the way, is doing his best Sissel Anderson imitation today. Joe,
yes,
how are you doing?
I am not as good as Sissel, but here we are.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. You never know. Sissel said, "Hey, who do you want to produce a show?" And I said, oh, "Come on, that's like saying, who's your
easy
favorite
question."
But no, thanks a lot for being here. And you have really behind the scenes been doing a lot for this 25th anniversary. I mean, there's not a lot of. I'm going to be up there emceeing, so it's kind of be out there, and I enjoy that kind of thing. I'm guessing you're like your dad. You wouldn't want to be the MC, but
no, Dave has the hard job of making everybody excited at the venue and making everybody ready to go, and then I'm just on the back end technical side.
Yeah,
and,
but
and
if
if
that
something
stuff
goes
in-
wrong, it's just
Man,
all on me.
And I'm the guy up there sweating
And you're
trying
just
to
like,
explain.
what's going on?
I don't know why that graphic's not up there, but that's one of the things that I find is interesting is that God distributes not only the talents but the interests. Because I'm guessing you would not even want to be up there on the stage, and quite frankly, I wouldn't want to be doing what you're doing.
No, I don't think I could be where I'm sitting there just talking in front of almost 2,000 people and just being like, hey guys, we're excited to be here. It's not me.
That's gonna be my opening line, and
there
you
you
stole it. Hi, we're excited to be here, but it probably will be something along those lines. So anyways, I hope you have your tickets. It's been so odd explaining this because I keep saying it's sold out, but nobody bought tickets. This is a free event. And, on the Good News Show for weeks and weeks and weeks, I was talking about, there'll come a day where there'll be wailing and gnashing of teeth outside the door trying to get in. And
that day is almost here.
Well, that day was like 3 weeks ago because that's when we cut off tickets. I mean, you couldn't get them. And I get emails, hey, can we still get tickets? Can we still get tickets? And the answer is really no, you got to get on the waiting list. And so it's kind of a strange thing, but get on the waiting list because people do drop off, and I don't know what we're going to do about the waiting list, but we'll get in touch with you. And but anyways, if you are on the list, we're looking forward to seeing you at the Plano Event Center next Saturday, the 19th of July. And that's awesome. One of the things behind the scenes is that our president, Sammy Rodriguez Jr., and his wife, Perla, were expecting a baby on July 19th. Mm-hmm. And so he wasn't going to be able to be here because his wife's having a baby that day.
Might be busy that day.
Yeah, but then did you see the email that went out today?
I did just see the email.
They had the baby today, a week early, praise God. And so does that mean Sammy comes? Or?
I could totally see his wife saying, you cannot travel for that first week. I know my wife is saying that for our baby in August.
Okay. I don't want to cause any trouble in the Sammy Rodriguez Jr. family.
That's not a fight that I'm willing to fight.
So anyways, welcome. It's really interesting. We, about, 2 or 3 months ago, I made the decision that rather than kind of scatter shooting on different topics and talking about this and that and the angels, which are all interesting topics, and the Trinity and the proofs for God's existence, that I was going to laser focus every single week on one of the questions in the Summa about the Eucharist. And I explained back then that the reason why I wanted to do this is because the Eucharist is Jesus Christ. I mean, the Eucharist is God, and it's one of those, Lord, I believe, help my disbelief, because I do believe intellectually and I accept all the teachings of the Catholic Church. And when I look at that host, I say, this is Jesus Christ, and I believe that intellectually. But then there's a part of me that would be like, how can that be? I mean, that looks like a piece of bread. And you're telling me that is Jesus Christ, body, blood, soul, and divinity. And so my curiosity was so high, hopefully a healthy, holy kind of curiosity, that I was like, I want to dig into this. I want to know the teaching. I want to, faith-seeking understanding about this. And that's why I thought, we're just going to go question after question through the Summa of when St. Thomas Aquinas teaches about the Eucharist. And we're just going to dig into it. And thanks be to God, we did it. And today is the final question, question 83 of what's called Tertia Pars, the third part of the Summa, where St. Thomas Aquinas talks about the Holy Eucharist. And so I'm not by any means, presuming that everybody watching right now has seen the other 10 episodes, but we did a deep dive, and you probably have been here for a couple of those, right, Joe?
I have. And every time I'm in my office or I'm traveling on the road for work or anything like that, when Back to the Father is on, I get the notification. I'm like, it's time to get on.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. You always say it's your favorite show.
It is.
And
it is my favorite GRN show.
That's the case, and so we appreciate it very much. And for those of you who are out there in social media land, this is a social media only program. We don't do this on the radio. They don't let us on the radio for this program.
No, they would never let us on the radio.
This is social media only. And so if you're out there on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days, let us know where you are, who you are, and if you have any comments or questions. This is 6 articles of question 83 of Tertia Pars, the third part of the Summa, talking about the rite of the Eucharist, the actual Mass. And what you're going to find is, I think it's article number 4 talks about what Thomas says, the words spoken during the Mass. And what Thomas is going to do here is he's going to go through the Mass and explain it. And I think this is so cool because I don't know about you, Joe, but I often, I'm 58 years old, so I've been, you multiply 58 by, 52, and then some daily masses. I've been to a lot of masses. I mean, thousands of masses. But I can't say that at any given Mass, I've ever totally absorbed myself into what's going on. I want to explain every single part. I want to understand every part of it. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing the Gloria? What did the priest just say? What did he mean? But if you have a fascination with that kind of thing, I'm going to spend most of my time on that particular article because Aquinas is going to go, part by part of the Mass and explain it. And I guarantee you're going to come out of it, no matter how much you know the Mass, but to have the angelic doctor, to have St. Thomas Aquinas explain the Mass, that's pretty invaluable. And then I warned Joe, the 6th article is called the defects of the Mass. How do we deal with the defects? And when I first saw that, I thought, what does that mean? I mean, what is he talking about, the defects? And, Joe's dad, Kent, has this thing that he says all the time. He'll say what could go wrong? He says it kind of tongue in cheek, what could possibly go wrong? So Article 6 is, what could go wrong during the consecration of the Eucharist? Thomas is really using his imagination here, okay? And I'm not going to tell you what they are, but he talks about all these possible things. Okay, I will give you one, okay, just as a little teaser. What happens if in the middle of the consecration, the priest dies? I mean, seriously, Thomas brings this up in the Summa. Let's say he consecrates the host,
but doesn't do the
blood, the precious blood, and he dies. I mean, it could happen.
Yeah.
Right? He could. I'm sure it has happened. Probably. At
2,000 years of the Mass being celebrated.
So this is the kind of thing that he asks, and it's interesting. What happens in that case? And so you just have to hold on. And I always say, this program probably won't last an hour. Now Joe doesn't believe this. Joe's
it's never gone under an hour.
And so it probably will go an hour. But again, let us know where you are. This is, I like the interaction. I like to know where you are and what you're thinking. So if you have time, if you're watching right now, let us know where you are. But all right, so 6 articles, 4 of them I'm going to go through very fast. Those other 2, the defects and then the words in the Mass, I'm going to go through pretty quickly. But and do we have graphics?
We do have graphics.
Okay. So the first graphic says whether Christ is sacrificed in the sacrament, and this is interesting because the question is there a re-sacrifice? I mean, is Christ sacrificed every single time there's a mass? I mean, there's thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands of masses every single day around the world. And is Christ being re-sacrificed every single time? What would you say about that?
I would say no, because I was always told, growing up with the catechism, it was like, it's an unbloody sacrifice, but it's more in the words, do this in remembrance of me. And it's a kind of hearkening back to it, but it's not a new sacrifice every time.
Now, what would you say if Thomas disagreed with you?
Then I would say, then I'm going to go with what Thomas said. That's just something that...
Yeah, I know. It's sacrifice, but when you hear how he explains it, you'll say, yeah, certainly it's not a bloody sacrifice. But what he says is, he says the celebration of the sacrament is called a sacrifice for 2 reasons. First of all, he says the images of things are called by the names of the things whereby they are images. So if I have a picture of Joe Loney, I'll say that I could say to somebody, hey, that's Joe Loney. Even though it's a picture of Joe Loney, you understand that it's him. It's him because it's an image of him. And the interesting thing about that is Aquinas also says that in the same way, the Old Testament sacrifices of like the bullocks and the bulls and all that kind of stuff, that was a sacrifice of Christ because it was an image, that was prefiguring Christ's ultimate sacrifice. And so in that regard, it's a sacrifice. And then he also says, excuse me, it's also called a sacrifice in respect of the effect of his passion, because by this sacrament, we are made partakers of the fruit of the Lord's passion. So because we partake of the fruit of the passion, in that regard, it is a sacrifice. But you're absolutely right. It's not a bloody sacrifice.
And it's not, I guess the question is it the same sacrifice? I mean,
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah. But you're right. It's a representation. It's not like historically the same.
Like that happened at one point in time, and obviously it reverberates through time and space. Like one sacrifice is all that was needed, but we all go back to that moment.
Yeah, but I think it is the same sacrifice that's offered up, represented. And the image is like you said, the picture of it. So when we see the sacrifice being offered up at Mass, it is Christ being sacrificed, but in an unbloody manner. And then also we bear the fruits of the sacrifice. And so that in that regard, it is a sacrifice. And so that's kind of interesting. We'll move on now to article number 2. He says whether the time for celebrating this mystery has been properly determined. And what he means by that is, why is the Mass offered every day? Okay, because like one of the arguments says that the Christ's sacrifice happened during the Passover at, like you said,
once
Joe,
a year.
Like a historical kind of event. And on Good Friday, we commemorate the passion and death of Jesus. So he's saying, well, why not just have the Mass once a year? I mean, to commemorate, it only happened that one time of that year. Why do we do the Mass every single day? And I'd be curious if there's a very specific reason that Aquinas says, why every day? And it has to do with that last article talking about we reap the fruits of the passion. So why every day?
I would say because of the line from Jesus, from the Our Father, the daily bread.
Yeah, exactly. You're thinking like Aquinas. He does quote that, and says, "Give us this day our daily bread." And Augustine said, "If it be a daily bread, why do you take it only once a year, as the Greeks have the custom in the East? Receive it daily, that you may benefit daily from the Eucharist." But in the precepts of the Church, we're only required, like absolutely required, to receive it once a year. Just like confession, you only have to go to confession once a year. Of course, if you're in a state of mortal sin, you better go as often as you can. But Thomas says, since owing to our daily defects, we stand in daily need of the fruits of our Lord's passion, and this sacrament is offered regularly every single day. And you'll see, especially, it's really interesting. One thing that comes across in these articles is how serious Aquinas takes the Eucharist. There's one particular part that I'll get to here in a little while that explains, like, if a priest makes a mistake or drops some of the precious blood during the Mass in a cloth, man, this is like serious business. Mm-hmm. He even talks about, like, and it's kind of gross, but it could happen. He said, what if a priest, gets intoxicated and accidentally, like, vomits out some of the precious blood? And he's like, whoa, this is serious, because therefore, a priest would have sinned in leading up to that. So anyways, that's article number 2. And we're going through these kind of quickly, but, oh, by the way, how often should a priest celebrate the Mass? Okay, how often should a priest celebrate the Mass?
Well, I was always told that priests celebrate a Mass daily.
Yeah, but should he do multiple Masses? Like on a Sunday, obviously most priests today
do 2 or 3 Masses, for a Sunday.
But I don't think that was originally the intention.
Well, I think the intention was to have, more priests.
Yeah,
so we're kind of, we have so many people at parishes that we need to, we have to dispensations and things that the church says we have to do.
Now read what he said. This is really interesting. He says, it is enough for a priest to celebrate one Mass each day, because Christ suffered once and redeemed the whole world, and very happily is he who can worthily celebrate one Mass. But there are some who say one Mass for the dead and another for the day, if need be. Okay, so he's saying in some really odd circumstances, like if there's, I guess, a funeral and then a Mass, you can do 2. But then he says, I do not deem that those escape condemnation who presume to celebrate several Masses daily, either for the sake of money or to gain flattery from the laity. He says it suffices for a priest to celebrate only one Mass every day. But I think you're absolutely right. This shows the crisis of vocations that we're in right now, because obviously the church says, we're not going to have a parish the size of, like, let's say St. Anne's.
Nobody has 7 priests at a parish that can celebrate one Mass for the Saturday, and then the Sundays going up through the 4 Masses or 5 Masses that happen.
Yeah, there are some parishes, like I'm thinking of St. Francis in Frisco. They have they gotta have 11 Masses on the weekends. But I also think that back in the day, there weren't the big parishes,
because this was the church for the town.
Yeah,
and so everybody in the town, their life was centered around work around the church.
Yeah, and then there would even up north, even today, that's why they're consolidating all these parishes, because there's so many of them. And they don't have the priests, and so they have to consolidate. But back then, you had so many priests, and every priest had his parish, and it was a small community, and everybody went there.
I have my 100 to 200 people, and that's all I have. And now we have 10,000 parish people.
And I wonder also, like you have, if a priest is going to say one Mass, or maybe you have 2 or 3 priests at a parish, and you have 3 Masses. But I wonder when that changed. Like when a priest started saying, I bet you there are priests that say 4 or 5 Masses a weekend.
Now, I will say, I think that when Thomas mentioned that, he talked about not doing it for flattery or for money purposes. I think that a priest who's doing it because he's serving his faithful, I don't think that is part of the condemnation. But I think if a priest was, paid per Mass, I think that would be where the problem would be. But if the priest is, doing it for the love of his church and the love of his people, then I think that is absolutely allowed, which is why the church allows it.
Yeah, and also, one really cool thing about St. Thomas Aquinas is that before he died, he said, everything that I've written, I entrust to the Holy Mother Church, and if there's anything that needs to be corrected, I basically he's saying, hey, if I got any of this wrong, and these are like what we call traditions with a little t, that a priest only says one Mass, or, that reception on the tongue, that was changed to allow for reception on the hand, and that might be changed back, or different things. And you'll see certain things in the Summa that were traditions back then that just are no longer traditions, because times have changed, and that's perfectly fine, because Holy Mother Church is allowed to do that. Article number 3, whether this sacrament ought to be celebrated in a house with sacred vessels. And this is, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. He's just saying, like, one of the arguments is, well, how can you consecrate something like an altar or a vessel, because it's not really, something like that can't receive grace, because it's not like a person. But what he says here is, we consecrate those things which make use of in this sacrament, both that we may show our reverence for the sacrament, and in order to represent the holiness which is the effect of the Passion of Christ. And so we use holy things, holy vessels, holy altars. And it's also the argument about why our church is so elaborate, why do we put so much money into it? But it's because of what happens there, right? I mean,
we want to give our best to God, and it's what are the small things that we have, the widow giving a few pennies, that's everything that she has.
Yeah, so we give everything.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, what is the inestimable value of a beautiful church? What is the most beautiful church? I remember when we were just over in Medjugorje, and also Croatia, we just saw some beautiful churches. I mean, I think Europe has us beat when it comes to churches. Have you ever been to Europe? Or
I have been to Europe, but I've never been to the church side of things. I went on a kind of in the Swiss mountains.
Oh, okay. Was that military?
No, not for military, but for Boy Scouts. When I was a younger.
You went to Switzerland with the Boy Scouts?
Yeah, it was either that, or we went to. Part of my group went to New Mexico hiking, but for the same amount of money, I could have gone to Europe. So I went to Europe.
Oh, wow. Something about like Swiss mountains seems
it was a beautiful experience.
Yeah, I've never been to Switzerland. All right, so we move on to the 4th article, and you're probably thinking, gosh, Dave, 22 minutes in, you're already on the 4th article. Maybe you are going to end before an hour. You are going to show Loney that you can end early. I don't know. We're just going to go through this, and then we'll see how it goes. But all right, so the 4th article says whether the words spoken in this sacrament are properly framed. And this is where Aquinas goes through the Mass, okay? He is going to go basically line by line through the Mass. And it won't take, a lot of time, but I do want to spend more time on this one and also one other article than the others, because this is Aquinas explaining the Mass. Now, you're going to find some things about the Mass have changed. There's one that's really interesting. I'll tell you what it is. He doesn't mention a homily. Like he just kind of goes past the homily, and so it made me wonder, like, were there homilies past that?
I think there were, but I think homilies, because the priest was in the community, you didn't need a Sunday sermon maybe to kind of explain it, because you'd walk past the workers in the field. I'd walk into town and I know these people, I can talk to them more on a more personal basis than our priest. That's what I.
So you say, like, hey, Father, that gospel that you read at Mass the other day, I got a question about it, but like he wouldn't formally say, okay, now I'm going
to talk to you about, you are Peter, and upon this rock I'll build my church, because he could tell you that in person.
So how do you know all this stuff?
I'm guessing.
It's like,
but it just
you come with some pretty cool insights.
But I think that would be more what it is, and now because we don't have, our priests are so busy, and so we have 1,000 people under the priest, so he can't talk to everyone, so they give the homily and give the sermon.
Okay, good. But even if you have a congregation of 100, 150 people, you can't have that many conversations. From a pragmatic standpoint, it might be nice to just say, hey, I don't really have an answer to this of whether or not there were homilies back in the day, but I would love to know if anybody knows this. Not that anybody was like living 750 years ago, but just historically speaking, is a homily a new thing? I don't know. It
may have been from the Protestant Reformation, where they kind of saw the value of what the Protestants did, where they that's all they had was the talking.
Right.
So they might have been like, we can take something that they're doing and try to use it for good.
And also, you think that even today, if you go to a Latin Mass, the whole Mass is going to be Latin, but then the homily is not going to be in Latin.
In English.
It's going to be in English. And I just wonder if back then they didn't do anything in the vernacular. Like everything was in Latin. And therefore, since I don't think people spoke Latin, even maybe
Only the clergy or the learned class, but like a normal worker wouldn't.
Yeah.
Maybe not know even how to read or write.
Yeah, interesting. So, all right, so here's where Aquinas goes to the Mass, and I'm not going to take forever on this, but I do think it's pretty interesting. He says, since the whole mystery of our salvation is comprised in this sacrament, think about that. The whole mystery of salvation is comprised in this sacrament. Therefore, it is performed with greater solemnity than the other sacraments. Therefore, the celebration of this mystery, and it's interesting. He says the celebration of this mystery is preceded by a certain preparation in order that we may perform worthily that which follows after. And in the first part is a divine praise, or called an introit, I-N-T-R-O-I-T.
I knew that from the Latin Mass when I went as a younger. I know the introit.
Is that the song at the beginning, like as the priest is processing?
No, it was the intro reading.
Introductory prayer.
Introductory reading.
He says this is taken for the most part from the Psalms.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least it is sung with a psalm, because Dionysius says the Psalms comprise the way of praise, whatever is contained in sacred scripture. So the very first thing that's done in a Mass is praise. You start with praise. And is that lost in the Novus Ordo? Or I'm just trying to think of...
No, I think because in the Latin, when I was SSPX, and we did there was an introductory reading, and then the Gloria was said. But in like the Novus Ordo, or the newer rite, it was, you come in, welcome, and then the Confiteor, Gloria, and then the readings are kind of all together. In the Latin one, in the 1962 one, they kind of split it up. There was a reading here, song or praise, another reading, song of praise. It's a little different.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things. I've not really focused a lot on liturgy. I mean, I always go to Mass. I'm very faithful. I go to Mass, but I don't always pay that much attention. I'm very distracted, and I say my prayers, but and so I don't know. That's why this stuff kind of fascinates me, is that I haven't given this that much thought. I mean, to my own shame. So the very first part is the praise, the introit. And then he says the second part contains a reference to our present misery, by reason of which we pray for mercy, saying, Lord, have mercy on us. But here's the interesting thing. He says, we say, Lord, have mercy on us 3 times for the person of the Father, and Christ have mercy on us 3 times for the person of the Son, and Lord, have mercy on us 3 times for the person of the Holy Ghost. We don't do that any longer. We might say, Lord, have mercy on us, Lord, have mercy on us. We just say it 3 times total, right?
Well, it's Lord, have mercy on us, Christ, have mercy on us, and then Lord, have mercy on us, Christ. Yeah, but you say it twice. Yeah. So like the singer or the priest will say the first one, there's a response. So it's only twice.
Yeah, but he's saying doing it 3 times for each person of the Trinity. In the old days. So again, the church has the right to change that, and so there's
the church instituted there. So
so you got praise, and then you have Lord have mercy. So we're acknowledging our own sinfulness. The third part commemorates the heavenly glory, to the possession of which after this life of misery we are tending in the words "Glory be to God on high," which are sung on festival days. And then of course days like Lent, you don't do that, right? And so so you praise, then you recognize your own sinfulness and your misery, and then you look forward to heaven. Glory be to God Most High. So all of a sudden there's this ordering. You're thinking ahead. This is the theological virtue of hope, is looking forward to the heavenly glory. And then he says the fourth part contains the prayer which the priest makes for the people, that they may be made worthy of such great mysteries. All right, and there proceeds in the second place what we call the liturgy of the word. He doesn't call it the liturgy of the word, but it's the liturgy of the word. What he calls it is the instruction of the faithful, because this sacrament is a mystery of faith. Now, this instruction is given when the lectors or subdeacons, we don't use that terminology these days, do we?
No, it's just
subdeacons.
but yes, subdeacons in that order.
Yeah, read aloud in the church the teachings of the prophets and the apostles. After this lesson, the choir sings. Have you ever heard of a gradual? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I know in the ordinariate we do have a gradual in place of the responsorial psalm. Mm-hmm. And he says, which signifies progress in life, the gradual, the progress in life. And then the Alleluia is intoned, denoting spiritual joy.
Before the gospel.
Yeah, the joy of the Alleluia before the gospel. And then he says, the people are instructed perfectly by Christ's teaching contained in the gospel, which is read by the higher ministers, that is, by the deacons. Which makes me, he doesn't say the priest reads the gospel. I wonder if back then the gospel was always read by deacons, because he doesn't say the deacon and the priest. And because, he said, now this is where he would have said, and then the priest gives a homily or a sermon, but he doesn't say that. He goes straight on, because we believe Christ as the divine truth, after the gospel has been read, the creed is sung, in which the people show that they, by assent, their faith to Christ's doctrine. All right, from the gospel to the creed.
I guess he's saying that also the Mass doesn't need a homily.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't need it because it's perfectly contained in and of itself, and the homily is an extra.
Yeah, I don't know about that, because I actually had a conversation with a priest about this recently, because over at Cistercian across the road mm-hmm. here, if you've ever been to their 6:30 Mass, I've been there in a number of years, so they may have changed this, but they wouldn't do a homily. In the morning, they would go straight from the gospel and then right into the liturgy of the Eucharist. And so I thought, well, like you're saying, mm-hmm. maybe the homily isn't necessary. But then a priest said, no, I think the homily is necessary.
A great person to answer this question? Call into the Quest and ask one of our priests.
Yeah, there you go. But
Ask Monsignor Pope will have questions. He's talking about the Latin Rite today. Mm-hmm. So if you guys have questions,
okay,
he would be the great person to answer. I mean, we're just two lay people over here talking and chatting it up.
Well, yeah, we're just kind of shooting from the hip. Yeah, but no, you're absolutely right. I mean, as I know Madigan often says on the Quest, hey, this is your opportunity to talk to a priest. I mean, a lot of times you feel kind of weird, stopping a priest after Mass. I know my pastor, he's really good at, because he wants to hit as many people as possible, mm-hmm. so to speak. And so he has very brief conversations, and I don't hold it against him, but you're never going to sit there and talk to him for 10 minutes. He's going to have a 1 minute conversation, mm-hmm. then he'll bounce to somebody else. But because he's one priest and he's got his flock. All right, so then we go on. So then after the people have been prepared and instructed, the next step is to proceed to the celebration of the mystery, which is both offered as a sacrifice and consecrated and received as a sacrament. Since first we have the oblation, which is a presentation, and then the consecration, and then the reception. Do you remember when we went on our family retreat, mm-hmm. and Father Geraci mm-hmm. was do you remember he said the most important part of the Mass is not receiving the Eucharist? Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And
It was a wild thing to hear, because when you're at Mass, you're like, oh, the most important part, I'm receiving Jesus.
Yeah,
I'm here with Jesus, and it's like, no, everything is about God the Father at Mass. It was a wild thing, but it's, since hearing that and I'm at Mass, I see God the Father more than I ever had. Right there.
Yeah, I know. That to me was like revolutionary. Because I thought, no, I go to Mass to receive Jesus. But that's
about me.
Yeah, exactly, because I'm going to receive something. So when Father Ken Geraci said that, I was like, wow. Now, here's the other thing that really gets me. He says, in regard to the oblation, an offering, two things are done. Namely, the people praise in singing the offertory expressing the joy of the offerers. The offertory hymn, I don't think many people even think about that. When we're singing like the offertory hymn, and most
people think it's just a random song because like stuff is going on.
Yeah,
that you're
just
kind of
singing.
I'm just kind of here waiting for the important thing to happen.
Exactly, but that's the whole point. Is that like that's the most important part of the Mass, and we're singing this offertory song, and I think you summed it up so well. It's just like, yeah, while the priest is doing his thing, I'm just kind of singing
I'm
the
just
song.
watching him getting his hands, washing his hands. I'm watching him pour. People are bringing up, a chalice. They're bringing stuff up to there, and I'm just kind of sitting there like, okay.
Yeah, and when the people bring up the offertory, I mean, that's like really important.
That's us.
For our Mass next Saturday, Joel and Elizabeth Victory are going to bring up the offertory gifts. And I asked Elizabeth about doing that, and she was just so honored. But to me, like if somebody came up to you and your wife and said, "Hey, would y'all bring up the offertory?"
I would just be like, "Oh, okay." But I wouldn't think about it.
I know. But it's like this is part of the most important part of the Mass. Okay, so the priest's prayer asking for the people's oblation to be made acceptable to God. Okay, so the priest is like, he's thinking of like bozos like me and Joe and saying, okay, we got to pray that this is going to be acceptable to God, okay? Because these people, they're pretty fallible. They don't quite understand what's going on. And so, but God, please accept this, okay? Then regarding the consecration performed by supernatural power, the people are first of all excited to devotion in the preface. Hence they are admonished to lift up their hearts to the Lord. And therefore, when the preface is ended, the people devoutly praise Christ's Godhead, saying, okay, listen to this. They praise God's Godhead, saying, holy, 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 and then his humanity, saying, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. So we're praising his Godhead, we're praising his humanity. I mean, there's like so much going on in the Mass that I never really thought about. And then we pray for those in high places. That's when we pray for the bishop and the Pope, right? And in a special matter of them who offer or for whom the Mass is offered. Now, I have often thought, like I'm really bad about offering Masses for people, but it's horrible because if you offer a Mass for a person, that's like the best thing that you can do for somebody. I remember Paul and I have a godson, Andres, and we were talking, about giving him a gift for his birthday, and we told his mom that, we were going to go buy him he likes history. We're going to go buy him like a history book or something like that he would love about war or something. But then we said, and we're going to also have a Mass offered. And the mom genuinely was like, oh, thank you so much. The Mass is just amazing. And it's like he really appreciated it too as a young guy. I don't know. I mean, praise God. I mean, but I don't. But you would think that if somebody offered up a Mass for you, would you be like, wow, that's like the most amazing gift you can possibly give me? I mean,
I'm bringing it directly to God the Father and being like, this is for. This is for my friends, for my spouse, for my child.
And sometimes the priest will say, this Mass is being offered up for Joe Loney or something like that. And you're like, oh, okay, all right, but a pretty big deal. Okay, he commemorates the saints, invoking their patronage, those who are mentioned above, communicating. Okay, and thirdly, he concludes the petition when he says, wherefore that this oblation, in order that the oblation may be salutary for them for whom it is offered. Okay, so the Mass is being offered for somebody, it's being given to the Father. Then comes the consecration itself. Here he asks, first of all, for the effect of the consecration, and then he goes through all the different parts. There's like 5 or 6 different things that are said that are related to the consecration itself, and then the receiving of the sacrament. The people are prepared for communion through the Lord's Prayer, in which we ask for our daily bread to be given to us, and also by private prayer when the priest puts up specially for the people. He says, deliver us, we beseech thee, O Lord, and then the Lamb of God. Every single part of it has like tons and tons of meaning. And so finally, then follows the reception of the sacrament. It's almost like an afterthought. Okay, now after all this goes into it, then we receive the Eucharist, which, I mean, I'm not diminishing that. That's a big deal, but that's all this is building up to this. And then we receive the Eucharist after we've offered everything to the Father, and afterwards giving to others because, okay, he says the priest has to receive, okay, because the priest can't just not receive but give. Finally, the whole celebration of Mass ends with thanksgiving, the people rejoicing for having received the mystery, and this is the meaning of the singing after communion. Again, it's It's not just a song.
He's just waiting for 500 people to come get Holy Communion.
Yeah. And the priest returns thanks by prayer as Christ at the close of the supper with his disciples sang a hymn. So anyways, that's Aquinas explaining the Mass, and something tells me if we just really dug into this mystery.
That would be its own show, the fourth article, I think.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it really could be. I mean, going into that pretty deep. So, all right, so that's that. And let me, Article 5, whether the actions performed in celebrating this sacrament are becoming, and that's a trick question, because anytime Thomas says is what happens at Mass becoming, the answer is always going to be yes. Of course, the actions are very important. So I'll close out by this final article that I kind of hinted at the beginning, where he's talking about the defects. So, like, what could go wrong during the consecration? And Thomas really goes off on some interesting tangents, but I mean, these have all happened. And so I asked Joe, I'm going to give you 7. Tell me which one, because I can't give the response to all of them, but which one you find most interesting, okay? Yeah. And I kind of think I know which one you're going to pick, okay? So there's going to be 7. Number 1, what if a priest dies or goes mad or is hindered by some other infirmity from receiving the sacrament and completing the Mass? That's what we talked about before. Yeah. Okay, middle of the consecration, he dies. I'm sure this has happened. Probably,
I've always heard the rumor they just bring in a priest comes in and finishes. He doesn't start over. He finishes from where he left off.
Exactly. That's exactly right. But like, not in most Masses, there's not another priest there.
No.
So do they call somebody and he has to? I mean, but you've got to. I mean, I hate to be crude, but you've got
to take care of
a dead person there. So do they? You would think like, well, let's not finish the Mass.
Put it on pause, but the Mass is the most important thing that we could do.
So we would actually take the body out and then finish the Mass
from the point of leaving off. It sounds cold to say, especially like if it's a priest that's like well loved by his church, and everything like that, and everyone.
But
that would be a celebration of like he was there with God at his death.
I mean, we all have to die doing something. I mean, what a great way to die. I mean, and okay, so that's number 1, and we've pretty much answered that one. You got that one right. So he says, okay. If something happens that before the consecration, the priest remembers that he has eaten or drunk something, which he means he's broke, or he is in mortal sin. Oh, I love this part. Or under excommunication, which he did not remember previously. It's like, how could a priest not know he was? I forgot I was excommunicated. I tell you, my memory is just not what it used to be.
Golly gee whiz.
Yeah. So so he's consecrating the Eucharist, and he remembers, I broke the fast. I can't receive this, which is required. The priest has to receive. Or I'm in a state of mortal sin. I can't receive. Or I'm excommunicated. And that slipped my mind before I started the Mass. Okay, so that's that one. This one, okay. Sometimes it happens that a fly or a spider or some other poisonous creature falls into the chalice at consecration, or even that the priest comes to know that poison has been put in by some evilly disposed person in order to kill him. Now, in this instance, if he takes it, he appears to be sinning by killing himself or by tempting God. Also, in like manner, if he does not take it, he sins by acting against the church's statute. I mean, this blows me away because, okay, the spider or the fly, I mean, that, big deal. I mean, but he goes into this long explanation of what you need to do if a fly or a spider falls in. I mean, but it's
maybe that was a big deal back in St. Thomas's day.
But I mean, I'll tell you what though, I can't tell you how many times I've been on our back porch with my wife drinking a glass of wine, and a fly goes in. I mean,
all the time.
It's happened in the last 10 days.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is a real thing because it is still the accidents of wine, right? Mm-hmm. And so I would imagine if there's a fly, they're attracted to it. Yeah. So this is probably, but then, what do you do? I mean, or I mean, gosh, God forbid you realize, somebody put poison in here, but then you got
I know there were some saints that like drank the poison precious
Yeah.
blood or poison wine that was turned into the precious blood they were fine afterwards, but I don't know what he would do. I don't know what the process would be.
I'll read you that one,
Yeah.
okay? Sometimes it happens that water is not added to the chalice, or even the wine is overlooked, and then the priest discovers this. It seems he is perplexed. Likewise, in this case, whether he receives the body without the blood, okay? So maybe they don't have wine, or they didn't pour the wine, or something like that, okay? So that, now this one, this is kind of interesting. Objection number 5. Sometimes it happens that a priest cannot remember having said the words of consecration or other words which are uttered in the celebration of the sacrament. In this case, he seems to sin whether he repeats the words over the same matter, which words possibly he has said before, or whether he uses bread and wine which are not consecrated as if they were consecrated. So you can imagine, especially with an older priest, he might be like,
Did I say that?
Did I say
And
the-"
especially if a priest has done this every day.
Yeah.
For, he's been a priest for 40 years. He's done that every day.
Yeah. And then you get to the point in the Mass and you're like, I don't remember if I said the words.
I will say it's one of the reasons why when I was SSPX and the priest would say the words of consecration, he would say it quietly. And so people couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
And like if I was serving, I could be right by it and I could barely hear it. But the congregation had no idea what he said.
Yeah. So they wouldn't be able to scrutinize
if
it.
he forgot, like in the newer rite, that those are said out loud. The congregation can hear it.
But if he doesn't say it, it's not consecrated.
Yeah.
So you're receiving bread and wine, and so it's almost like a nice, little check to say, okay, Father, I don't know if you whispered it or not. And, interesting. Sometimes it comes to pass, owing to the cold, that the host will slip from the priest's hand into the chalice, either before or after the breaking. In this case, then the priest will not be able to comply with the church's rite, either as to the breaking or else as to this. It's like everything matters. Like when he breaks the host,
It's very intentional.
You have to do that, and you have to put a tiny bit of water in. You can't put a lot of water. And everything has to be intentional. And then finally, now this one, Christ's blood is spilled or he vomits the sacrament received, or that the consecrated hosts are kept so long that they become corrupt, or that they are nibbled by mice, or lost in any manner whatsoever, in which case it does not seem possible for due reverence to be shown towards the sacrament. So you have such an old host that it's already become kind of corrupted, or like maybe a mouse has nibbled on it, or God forbid that, there's so somebody is thrown up or something. Yeah. But, look, you see, we got a comment. Liliana Barrera says hi. Hi, Liliana Barrera. Where are you watching from, Liliana? Did you see that comment?
I did not see it.
It's on YouTube. Yeah. So, all right. Liliana Barrera is out there, and we're glad. That's the only comment we've had so far this show is hi. But you know what?
Howdy.
Yeah. Howdy to you. All right. So let me just close out with this explanation. A couple of things, and he says, if a fly or a spider falls into the chalice before consecration, or if it be discovered that the wine is poisoned, it ought to be poured out, and after purifying the chalice, fresh wine should be served for consecration. But if anything of the sort happen after the consecration, okay, that's before.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's still just
Before
wine, right? Yeah, it's just like, no big deal. It's just a fly in wine, so big deal. But if it happened after the consecration, the insect should be caught carefully and washed thoroughly, then burned. And the ablution, together with the ashes, thrown into the sacrarium. So it's like, wow.
Very specific. I know
you can't just like, throw
that's the water going directly to the earth, that it doesn't go through any, sewer or anything like that. It goes directly, it drains to earth.
And so you got to take the fly out, because the fly is like covered with the precious.
And burn it and take the ashes and all that.
But it shows you how seriously he takes it. He says, if it be discovered that the wine has been poisoned, the priest should neither receive it nor administer it to others on that account, lest the life-giving chalice become one of death. But it ought to be kept in a suitable vessel with the relics. And in order that the sacrament may not remain incomplete, he ought to put other wine into the chalice, resume the Mass from the consecration of the blood, and complete the sacrifice. So, it's just like...
What happens? Does he say what happens to it afterwards? Like
Yeah,
after
the
it gets stored
poison.
away?
Yeah, he doesn't. I mean, that's it. I mean, there's a lot of parts of this that... and one thing, if I read all of these 6 articles, man, this would be a 5-hour show. I'm just kind of like touching on a couple of things here. He goes into a lot of detail, but he doesn't explain that. Now, the last thing I want to read is to me kind of blew me away. And this is talking about that question of like, what if the priest spits out, like vomits or like the precious blood is dropped onto a cloth or something like that. Listen to the detail here and listen to what like happens. And this will be the last thing. He says, if from neglect any of the blood falls upon a board which is fixed to the ground, let it be taken up with the tongue, the blood, not the board, and let the board be scraped. But if it be not a board, let the ground be scraped, and the scrapings burned, and the ashes buried inside the altar, and let the priest do penance for 40 days. Okay,
Wow.
and that didn't even say like he did on purpose. I mean, it says from neglect.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
40 days of penance. Now he didn't stipulate what the penance was, but I'm guessing that's fasting. 40 days. But okay.
I've seen when I was a server, I saw many times where I would walk and someone would receive it and it would drop. Like I've seen way too many hosts drop in my life, and I'm not even that, and I'm not old. And I just sat there and I was like, it was like, oh, it was just covered, cleaned, and that was it. So I wonder I don't know if the church has said that, nobody has the wood floors that we can take up and all this extra stuff. But that's,
I know, but it just shows you like how seriously he takes it. If a drop fall from the chalice onto the altar, let the minister suck up the drop and do penance during 3 days. Okay.
So he's lucky to drop it on the altar.
Yeah, and he didn't even say intention. I mean, like through any kind
Neglect.
of neglect. Okay, if it fall upon the altar cloth and penetrate to the second altar cloth, let him do 4 days penance. If it penetrate to the third, let him do 9 days penance. To the fourth, let him do 20 days penance.
He's like,
how many cloths do they have? I mean, I guess
I know there's 3.
Okay, this one, the one to 4. Let the altar linens which the drop
Actually,
touched.
no, there's 4. Sorry.
Let the altar linens which the drop touched be washed 3 times by the priest. It didn't say the lady at the parish. She said the priest. Holding the chalice below, then let the water be taken up, put away nigh to the altar. It may even be drunk by the minister, unless it be rejected from nausea. So the water that he's using to clean it, you drink. I mean, he's like leaving nothing to chance here. Some persons go further and cut out that part of the linen which they burn, putting the ashes in the altar down the sacrarium.
Yeah.
Okay. Now listen to this. If owing to drunkenness or gluttony, anyone vomits up the Eucharist, let him do 40 days penance. If he be a layman, okay, that's if he be a layman.
40 days.
40 days.
That's you and me.
So if you and I go and, we're a little tipsy or something and you throw up, 40 days penance. But let clerics or monks, deacons and priests do 70 days penance, and let the bishop do 90 days. But if they vomit from sickness, let them do penance for 7 days. And in the same distinction, they who do not keep proper custody over the sacrament, if a mouse or other animal consume it, must do 40 days penance. He who loses it in a church, or if it fall and not be found, do 30 days penance. And the priest seems to deserve the same penance who from neglect allows the host to putrefy. And on those days, the one doing the penance ought to fast and abstain from communion. Man, imagine if this was taught in like Holy Communion class, like to kids,
people would be terrified of receiving it.
You think?
It's like 70 days, 40 days.
I know,
for me.
because you think if you're sick, I mean, like I don't know. I mean, if I was sick and I threw up, I wouldn't think like, gosh, I need to.
I wouldn't think it would. To me, I would always say like, oh, that's not my fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, obviously, like drunkenness, like that would be a whole nother thing where you're sick from an accident. But like if you had the flu, like you didn't intentionally get the flu, it was,
Yeah. Yeah. This may be like TMI here, but this is something that it happens pretty often. Like I'll go to communion and then like after communion, I'll need to go to the restroom, right? And, and that's, like sometimes you might like spit into the urinal, and I'll spit and I'll think like, whoa.
Nope.
I just received Jesus, and I don't know if he's completely like, you shouldn't do that. Yeah. And then I will say like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. But that sounds like that would be a thing like penance. I mean, you just can't. I mean, I didn't do it voluntarily, or out of malice, but I'm just like, no, don't you should
have the most reverence that we can.
Shouldn't
for that.
walk out of mass and spit or or anything like that, because you might still have Jesus. All right, Timoteo Saldana Honesto is here. Thank you so much, Timoteo. Yeah, you did almost miss it, and
but you guys will be able to watch this back.
Yeah, you can watch it back to the
back to the Father. Back to the Father is back.
All right. Well, Joe, thanks so much, man. You know more about the faith. I mean, because you've been going to mass, of course, your whole life, and you've been actually paying close attention. I think you've been paying closer attention than I have. So, thanks for all the input. It's great having you on the program. Yeah. And not only is it Joe's favorite show, but Joe was part of the show today, so he was his favorite.
Yes, it's just double favorite. We're back to the favorites.
Yeah, and right as we start to close out, we're increasing listeners. So people are like, okay, it's almost done.
They want to hear us.
I think I'll start paying attention to it. So anyways, thank you, Liliana and Timoteo. And if anybody else is out there that wants to make yourself known, thank you. And, that's it for the Eucharist. We've covered all 11 questions. I found it very interesting. And I'm thinking about, man, I don't know, Joe, you can give me some input. I'm thinking about going to like the teaching of the Trinity, because I mean people are so intimidated by the Trinity.
Well, the moment you hear the Trinity, it's either somebody who has no idea about it and just like, oh, it's just the Trinity, just accepts it, or somebody who's like, I can never believe that. There's got to be that medium ground where it's like the faith of a child that says I believe in it, but the same knowledge of like
So it's like three persons, one nature, one essence, one being. It's like, whoa. And so I think that's what we're going to do. And, okay, so that's my thinking anyways. So I have...
But if you have ideas, please let us know. We'd love to cover a topic that, our audience would want to hear.
Back to the Father at grnonline.com. Back to the Father at grnonline.com. And Joe's right. Even though I say it may not go an hour, by golly, this went an hour, didn't it? Anyways, thank you very much, Joe. Thank you all for listening. And if you are going to be at the event in Plano, Texas next Saturday, come up to us and say, hey, I'd love to meet Timoteo. Timoteo is like a legend. He's
a faithful listener to us. He's so supportive. We really appreciate it.
He says, everybody have a great weekend and a safe weekend, and God bless all of you. Thanks, Timoteo. And we'll see you back in 2 weeks for the next Back to the Father, and that's when we're going to start the Blessed Trinity. Okay, so if you want to get on our email list, email me, backtothefather@grnonline.com. I typically send out an email the day of. Today I forgot. I'm sorry. 40 days of penance. 40 days of penance. You too, Joe. Okay.
It's only 10 days for missing that on the day of the event, so it's okay.
All right. We'll see you. Thanks for joining us, and God bless you.
Thanks for joining us for Back to the Father. And don't forget, the glory of God is the human person fully alive. If you have comments about the show, email Dave Palmer at grnonline.com.